to have that level of clarity about what exactly does your goal means, then this video is for you. So in this video itself, I would like to walk you through the process of crafting a staff goal. Now, just take note that you can, of course, apply this same process to writing a student goals or to writing, any kind of goals itself, right? Particularly, this is useful, especially if you're writing goals pertaining to staff as well as students. So let's take a look at how it's going to be done. Now, first thing first, what I'd like you to do is that I'd like you to think of it as a structure, right? So the question that you want to ask yourself, or the statement that you really want to complete, is this statement itself, right? So we want our stuff to be blank. Okay, so this is, you want to ask yourself, what kind of stuff must we have, right? And the answer to that question would kind of give you the answer to this statement itself. So once you have the statement, this is where you know what kind of stuff you want to have. And so the way to actually implement this is what I call the be and the have and do framework. Now, so we always start off with the of having trouble trying to explain to people what your staff goals means. And even after communicating, you still find that people have different interpretation or different level of understanding of what it means by, let's say, a competent staff or an engaged staff. Then this video, it's definitely for you. So in this video itself, what I like to share with you is the process of writing a staff goal. And actually the process is fairly simple, because all you need to do is to ask yourself this very question. What kind of staff must we have so that we are able to support the implementation of the strategies to help our school achieve its goals? Right? What kind of staff must we have so that they could implement the strategies to help our school achieve its goals? And so the answer to that question itself would help you fill in the blank to this next statement that you will see. We want our staff to be blank. So this is going to be the starting point of how you're going to write the goal. Now, when it comes to writing the goal, it's the key idea with that is how to write a goal. Then this video is for you, because in this video itself, I'm going to show you a structure to help you write goals with greater clarity. Hi, so the focus of this video itself is to really help you write goals with that greater clarity. And when we say greater clarity, what we are saying here is that people have a better idea of what exactly does the goal mean. So to help you with this process itself, what you need to do is to fill in the blank to this statement. Now the statement says we want our staff to be blank. So what do you want your staff to be? What kind of staff do you want to have? That is the key question that you want to ask yourself. And so the way to kind of think about it is I have a framework, which is a be, have to. But in this video itself, I'm just going to touch on the be. The next video, then we are going to go into the have and the do. So when we talk about the be part of the goal, what exactly we're looking at here is as follows. The way to think about it is that you need to have a structure. You need to have a format for writing your goals. So a way to think about it is that we want our staff to be a competent staff, right? That could be your answer to that question. Or perhaps your answer to that question is we want our staff to be, an engaged staff. And that's what we want our staff to be. And so the way to look at this is that, this goal has got two parts to that. The first part, which is the part in red, it's what you could call the adjectives. And the part that you have in black, it's what you call the noun. So every time when you write a goal or an outcome, you want to write it in this format, the adjective and a noun. So to help you, better understand how this works itself, I'm going to give you, more example. If you were to refer to the teacher growth model, or TGM for short, you would realize that in the teacher growth model, the outcomes of an educator, it's written in the same structure as well. It has got both the adjective as well as the noun, right? So going forward, this is the way that you would write your goals, because it's going to help you be able to craft it in a way that gives you greater clarity, and to be able to help you explain what kind of stuff do we want to have. Right. And so in the next video, I will go into a bit more detail in terms of how you can enhance that level of clarity, how you can take it to the next level. You know that everyone has a common interpretation of that goal itself. So what you really need to do is you really need to unpack the goal. But how exactly do you do that, especially for a staff goal? That's what we want to be looking at in this video. So in this video, what we really want to do is we want to look at the process of unpacking a staff goal. And just bear in mind that this same process can be used for student goals as well. So the way to think about unpacking your goals is to think of it in terms of a be, have, do framework itself, right? As I mentioned earlier on, when you start writing the goal, you want to start off with a be goal, right? And so that's just where you say that, well, I want my staff to be blank. And so as an example here, I want my staff to be a competent staff. But the problem with that definition, or the way that you write that goal, is that it may be open up for different interpretation. So one department might interpret competent staff to be able to carry out a certain pedagogies in class, and another department may be looking at, a competent staff is someone who is able to engage students effectively. So who is right and who is wrong, right? And so the way to kind of minimize and to reduce the level of confusion here is that you want to take it to the next level. And to take it to the next level is where you introduce the have and the do. So what do I mean by that? Now, let's say the focus of our school for this next planning cycle is going to be on differentiated instruction and e-pedagogy. And so when you talk about competent staff, what exactly do you mean by competent staff? Now we have all those baseline standards that every staff must be able to handle the class in an effective manner. Every teacher must be able to engage their students, right? But now, over and above that, our area of focus is on e-pedagogy as well as differentiated instruction. And so with that, that become our focus when we talk about competent staff. So while the goal can be the same, technically speaking, the emphasis and the interpretation of it could change from one planning cycle to the next planning cycle. So, an example that I can share with you here is, let's say we are talking about competent staff, but in order to minimize or to reduce the level of confusion and the level of different interpretation, what we want to do is we want to bring in the have and the do components. So one way of doing that is that we want to talk about what kind of competencies must a competent staff have. And this is where we can say, well, a competent staff must have, knowledge and skills in the area of assessment and evaluation. And if that is not enough, what you want to do is you want to then go ahead and describe what does it look like when they are competent and they have those knowledge and skills. And so, what's in black here is essentially describing what they must do, right? They have good knowledge of and applies assessment modes to determine progress and evaluate learning. That is what they must do. So the words in red are the haves, and the words in black are the do's. Now, where do we get this from? And I would always like to advise my SSDs that we default back to our EPMS document. Now, in our EPMS document, you have what you call the competency column as well as the behavioral indicators column. Now, so this is where you can pick up, the have, which is assessment and evaluation, and what they must do, which is in the behavioral indicators column. Now, let's take a look at another example here. And this example is where we're talking about an engaged staff. Now, again, if you go to one school and you talk about engaged staff, and you go to another school and you talk about engaged staff, the definition could be very different. And one reason for it being different is perhaps the focus of the school or where the school is at in terms of the entire school climate or the engagement level as a whole. So this is where we also want to take it one step further and unpack it. What does it mean to have an engaged staff? And so the way to think about it again is to use the have and do. And so the words in red is the have, and the words in black are the do's. So we want our staff to have intellectual flexibility. Now, what does that look like when they have intellectual flexibility? Well, it looks like they are able to generate solutions innovatively, evaluates possible course of action, and even considering possible trade-offs. That is what we are able to observe. And once again, these are taken from the competency column in your EPMS, as well as the behavioral indicators in your EPMS document. So let's look at how you would actually implement that, and let's look at some things for you to think about. So the example that I have here is for a school whereby the school wants to have a restorative culture. Now, this is taken from an actual school itself, so some of the details have been dropped to kind of, mask the identity of the school for obvious reasons. So the way to think about this is that the school wants to have a restorative culture. That is what they want to have, right? That is their goal. So what kind of staff must we have? And so if you just say that, well, our staff must be a world-class RP practitioner, that may be good, but that would open up a lot of room for discussion and interpretation or misinterpretation. So when we guided the school in terms of crafting that goals, what we helped them did was that we helped them identify not just the be but the have as well. So take a look at this. The way that they have written that goal, like I said, some of the details are dropped for obvious reasons, but essentially the essence behind this is that they want a world-class RP practitioner. They want their teachers to be a world-class RP practitioner. And so, what must a world class RP practitioner have? Well, they must have the mindset and the skill set in restorative practice, right? So, that kind of gives you an idea of who do we want them to be and what they must have. Now, another example that I can give you, which is slightly different, is that this school wants to have a differentiated learning experiences for their students. And so once again, they're going to ask themselves, what kind of staff must we have in order to achieve that goal? Now, we can say that, well, we want every staff to be a competent professional, but what does it look like? Well, they must have the skill set to design differentiated learning experiences, right? They must have the skill set to design differentiated learning experiences. So, what I'd like you to do in this part here at this juncture, it's have a look at your staff goals, right? And see, what is the level of clarity the staff goals that you have? What is the level of clarity like? So does it have the be component? Does it have the have component? Does it have the do component? Well, if you have all three, then this is where you are able to have a definitive definition or interpretation of what the staff goal is. And if you don't, it could open up a lot of room for misinterpretation and different types of understanding. So have a look at it and see what is the level of clarity your existing staff goals have. And then I'll see you in the next video.